It was a quiet autumn afternoon, the kind of day when everything outside feels like a memory. Soft rain on the glass, brown leaves floating across empty streets, and a silence that somehow speaks louder than words. Amelia sat by the cafe window, her fingers wrapped around a cup of warm coffee that had already gone cold. She wasn't waiting for anyone, yet she couldn't bring herself to leave either. Maybe she was waiting for something she couldn't name anymore. A sign, a moment, a reason. Her life had been on pause for years. After her husband passed away suddenly, everything lost its color. The days blurred into nights, and people became background noise. She still smiled when needed, still worked, still lived. But her heart had stopped feeling. That's when he appeared. A man in a brown coat, calm eyes carrying the quiet of someone who had lived enough to stop explaining himself. He asked if the seat across from her was taken. She shook her head, surprised she could even speak. For the first few minutes they said nothing, just two strangers sharing the same silence, but something about that silence felt different. Peaceful, not heavy. He finally spoke. "You come here often?" She smiled faintly. "Every day, maybe out of habit." He nodded. "Habits are what keep us human, I suppose." His voice carried a strange comfort, steady, deep and kind. They began to talk, slowly at first, about coffee, the rain, the view. But soon the conversation slipped into deeper things. About loss. About missing people who never truly leave you. About how some days you wake up fine, and then suddenly you're not. He listened like no one else ever had, and not to reply but to understand. Amelia found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud in years. About her late husband. About the letters she still kept in a box. About how she still cooked for two sometimes without realizing it. He didn't interrupt, he just smiled softly and said, "Maybe we keep cooking for the ones who once made our world warm." There was something in his words that reached straight into her chest. For a moment she felt like she could breathe again. Like grief wasn't a cage but a bridge between what was and what remains. Hours passed unnoticed. The cafe emptied. The rain softened into mist. When she finally looked at the clock, she realized evening had fallen. She turned to ask his name, but he was already standing up. "You're leaving?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. He smiled gently. "I was never really staying." She frowned, confused. "Will I see you again?" He looked at her for a long moment. That kind of look that feels like goodbye before the words even come. Sometimes people only meet once, but that one meeting can change everything. And with that he walked out, disappearing into the fading light and the drizzle. She sat there trying to make sense of the ache in her chest. She glanced at the empty seat, the untouched cup across from her, and noticed something he had left behind. A small, folded note. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, in neat handwriting, were just a few words. "You kept your promise, he's proud of you." She froze. Her eyes filled instantly. How could he have known? Because only her late husband used to say that. "Promise me you'll keep living even when I can't." She looked outside again, but he was gone. The street was empty except for the quiet reflection of autumn lights on wet pavement. That night, for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. She didn't know who he was or if he was even real. But somehow she knew she had been found, not by chance but by grace. And as she walked home under the soft rain, she whispered into the wind, "Thank you, stranger." The world didn't change that night, but she did. And sometimes that's enough. She met a stranger in a cafe on a rainy afternoon. But what he left behind changed her life forever. Sometimes the people who enter our lives for a moment stay in our hearts forever.